Hi there! In the rugged northwest of Tasmania, the remains of many long abandoned railways lie along ridge lines and through valleys. These lines, intended to open up rural hinterlands, largely failed in their goals and closed not long after opening. This video will look at one of the worst examples of this, the preolenna branch line. This line served extremely remote and underpopulated hinterlands west of the town of Wynyard, and upon opening made a grand total of £20 per month. Hi, I'm Jess, I run the YouTube channel Tasmanian, and in this video we're looking at a truly pointless railway line. Let's go back to the start. This region was the home of the Pirapa and Tomagina nations of the Palawa for tens of thousands of years. The geography of this area is very rugged and was likely not settled frequently by indigenous populations. The preolenna branch will be built along a narrow ridgeline between the Paithin-Butik Inglis River and Larapi Flowerdale River. Europeans first visited this area in the 1820s when the Van Diemen's Land Company sent out colonists to explore the northwest coastline between Circular Head and Emu Bay. By the early 1900s, this was considered rich agricultural ground, but as with many areas of the state, it lacked adequate transport options to reap the benefits. In 1901, the Western Railway line was extended to Burney Junction, and plans were made to go further. Works commenced in August 1911 on the extension of Burney Junction to the town of Myalla, including the branch to the Flowerdale Ballast Pit. After a year and a half, the line from Burney to Wynyard opened in February 1913, with the extension to Myalla complete in August, almost exactly 2 years after construction began. Later on, the line would be extended from Myalla to Wiltshire Junction in 1922, that is covered more on my video on the railways of the far northwest coast. There's a link to that in the description. The only major station between Myalla and Wynyard was called Flowerdale, and that is where our story truly begins. In 1914, the state government began investigating ways to open up the timber and agricultural lands south of Flowerdale for development. Survey work commenced on a rail route from Flowerdale to the remote locality of Preolenna in January 1915. The first 6 miles of the route passed through good farming land, however the remainder of the route passed through difficult, only impassable country. A route was found, however, and construction began swiftly on the 4th of March 1915. Work proceeded for just over 2 years before the full line opened on the 26th of March 1917. The 15-mile-long line commenced from Flowerdale Junction, heading southward through sidings like Morlaya and Laponia before entering remote country. They were reportedly stopping places at locations known as Hardy and Camerons before reaching Calder siding, and entering better country to emerge at Preolenna. There was no opening ceremony, with the only mark of the occasion being a notice in local newspapers saying the Devonport to Myalla train on Mondays and Thursdays will now head to Preolenna before continuing to Myalla. While there is no record of it, and can be expected that travellers to Myalla may not have enjoyed a bonus 3-hour deviation to their trips. In a report dated 30th of June 1917, the Commissioner for Railways, George Smith, identified the construction of the railway as a political pork-barrelling exercise, and that in the first 3 months of operation the branch had made a whopping £71. To put this into comparison, it cost £80,597 to build the railway. Furthermore, he predicted that the railway would struggle to earn £20 a month, which would later come to fruition. Well, at this point you'd think they would just close the line and pretend it never happened, but nope, worse was to come. An outfit calling itself the Preolenna Coal Company discovered seams of coal 5 miles south of Preolenna Station and requested the government extend the railway to their mine. The government, believing this was a way to bail out a struggling line and get some serious traffic going, supported the plan and began construction of an extension on the 17th of March 1922. Despite this, construction was stopped very shortly after due to financial issues with the Preolenna Company. Construction recommenced on the 28th of July before being suspended again in December. At this point, the reasonable outcome should have been pretty clear and the railway was never extended. Right? Nope, construction recommenced in April, this time being described as a disaster as winter conditions washed away much of the work. Somehow they finally completed the line this time, with services being extended to Moena via a siding at Mayuna on the 24th of March 1924, a full 2 years since construction on the extension begun. The terminus at Moena contained a station building, a cottage, a Y, goods shed, and many sidings for the mine. Despite the ample facilities, the station had no local residents and only served native forests and a small, struggling coal mine. The final cost of the extension was a whopping £47,613. Now you'd think this is as bad as it can be, right? Somehow, you'd still be wrong. Only a month after the extension opened, the preolenna coal company laid off all its mine workers, despite claiming to have mined thousands of tons of coal. Some minor problems emerged, including very limited amounts of real coal, and whatever coal could be found was laced with sulfur, requiring it to be mixed with other coal to be usable. Over the next 6 years, the company tried anything they could to no avail. The company also tried diversifying into timber harvesting with no success. At the time, Railways Commissioner Charles Miss Campbell described traffic on the preolenna line as infinitesimal. How do you say this word? This one. In 1924, a new timetable for the branch was introduced alongside the extension, finally relieving Myala passengers of the injustice of being dragged to preolenna twice a week. This timetable featured a Mondays-only train from Wynyard to Moina, with Wednesday and Friday services being operated on demand only. By the late 1920s, trains ran purely on demand, and with next to no traffic, it was unsurprising when the regular service was suspended on the 6th of April 1931, in the height of the Great Depression. The preolenna branch finally closed on the 21st of November 1931, bringing to an end a disastrous chapter of Tasmanian rail history. Rails were removed in the late 1930s by a C-class engine, and no attempt has been made at reopening the line. So, what remains now? The western line from Wiltshire and Myala to Burnie has been disused since 2003, however the tracks still remain along the whole line, including at Flowerdale Junction. The alignment of the preolenna line still exists in many areas, however much of the line south of Morlaea, including most of the agricultural land and native forest the line was built to serve, have been covered with plantation forests in the 2000s. As with the original line, there will be no good reason to ever consider reopening the line. However, shockingly, I believe in the early 2000s there was some amount of minor talk with reopening the line and extending it to proposed mines near West Tacone. At any rate, this brings me to the end of this video about a super weird railway in Tasmania. When let's talk about this line, railways in general, or anything else, come join my Discord server. There's a link to it in the description. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time on Tasmanian.